Hello, everybody. Welcome to Acquisitional Wealth. I'm Josh Tully, your host. Glad you are here. Hey, before we get started, if you are just happening upon this episode, which is episode number 4, go back and make sure you watch episode 1, 2, and 3. All of these episodes are building on each other. It's kind of like learning building blocks. So go back, make sure you listen to episode 1, 2, and 3, and then come back here to 4. For all of you who are supposed to be on episode number 4, I'm glad you're here. Today's topic's a little bit interesting. It's kind of come up a lot lately, and I thought I would address it, especially in light of the fact that there is a lot of economic change happening in the Western world as we speak. But before we dig too deep into that, I wanted to make sure to remind everybody, make sure you are joining our Facebook page. It's absolutely free to join. We have really cool content there. There are opportunities for you to engage in conversations, ask questions, all that sort of stuff. And I wanted to make sure that you're involved, because what we're talking about with acquisitional wealth is the fastest, most proven, solid way to create life-changing wealth in the history of mankind. And it's a very important topic that's exciting a lot of people. Matter of fact, just between episode number 3 and episode number 4, I would say about $47 million has now come in that we're trying to spend and buy and acquire businesses for people just like you through our sponsoring organization, Kingsbridge. For those who are watching this via the YouTube or video streams, for those listening to the audio podcast, you can go to kingsbridgebrokers.com. But it's just amazing. I mean, we've helped and we do these episodes every week, right? Since episode number 2 to episode number 4, we're helping 2 families become millionaires for the first time. Hallelujah. Love doing that. Helping one guy transition out of a business. He's just, tired of running and wanting to get into something else. So it's just an amazing thing. I mean, you have all these people out in the world going to work 40, 50 hours a week for what, 70, 80, 100 grand a year. And they're like, man, how do we get ahead? And let me be really clear. If you're working minimum wage at McDonald's, I'm extremely proud of you. You're doing what you have to do, and amen to that. But there gets a point where you get to this place where you're like, okay, now how do we level this up? How do we level this up? And so many Americans were under this delusional idea that all they had to do was get a decent middle-class income job, I say somewhere between $90,000 and $200,000 a year, and save up $1 million in their mutual fund because some idiot on the radio told them that's what they should do. And they realized real quickly, well, that was stupidity on a stick, and it's just mathematically not going to work. And those people are the ones that we're talking to. Those people are the ones where we're saying, look, you're right. It's time to level up, and you can do it. And this is how. And it's a process called acquisitional wealth. Acquisitional wealth has been around for 5,000, 6,000 years, something like that. So it's definitely something you want to be engaged in, no doubt about it. So make sure you're part of the Facebook group over there, the website, acquisitionalwealth.com. You can find out information there as well. And of course, subscribe to these podcasts wherever podcasts are distributed to you. All right. Today's topic, if you're ready for it. College or buying a business? I know. Let's add a little context to this. So I've been teaching people about business now for 27 years. And one of the questions that has always come up was, Josh, what do you think I should do about college, whether for themselves or for their children or sometimes their grandchildren? Is college worth it? And before we get to college or buy a business, let's just dive into that. Is college worth it first? And I want to start by saying, if you're going to school to be an architect or a surgeon or something like that, go to college. But the vast majority of people who get college degrees, one, will never use them, ever. They'll never use that field of study to make a living. It's something like 80+%. It's insane. Maybe it's lower than that. Maybe it's 60%. But anything over 20% is just stupid. Why are you doing it then? But let's set that aside for a second. But then you look at what you're getting a college degree in, and the first thing there is why? Why would you get a degree in that? If it doesn't pay well enough to get you to the life you want, why are you pursuing that as an education and then pursuing it as a career? That makes no sense at all. None. Then let's add to that. Do you even really need the college degree anymore like you used to? And the answer is simply no, you don't. College degrees used to be vital because college was the only place with the books. Makes sense, right? I mean, if you're getting a Harvard education and Harvard's the place with the books, where do you got to go to learn? You go to Harvard. Well, that world doesn't exist anymore. I mean, in your pocket, you're carrying the Library of Congress for free. And I remember I was doing this seminar once where this guy wanted to be a creative writer, and he wanted to get a degree in creative writing. Josh, I that's what I want to pursue as a profession. I want to write novels. So I'm spending a ton of money, like $80,000, $90,000 on a degree to learn how to write novels. And I said, okay, let's just think about this. What is college? It's 2 years. The first 2 years are useless time, right? You're doing all these useless classes that don't pertain to anything. They just have to make you feel good for dropping $90,000. Last 2 years, you're starting to focus more in depth, I guess, on whatever career or subject matter you're learning. And that's going to consist of maybe, generously 7 or 8 textbooks, some labs, doing whatever it is that you're going to do. So let's say 20 hours of those, and let's say another 20 hours of lecture, if I'm being really, really generous. So all in all, 60 hours. Let's just break it down that way. 20 hours of lecture, 20 hours of labs, 20 hours of reading textbooks. You could double it or triple it. Doesn't really make my point any less valid. And you're going to be learning this from a man or a woman who probably has not been very successful in the creative writing space. That's why they're teaching creative writing in a college. And before somebody emails me, well, my creative writing professor sold 100,000 copies of her sci-fi novel. Okay, great. For every sci-fi novelist who's now a college professor, good on you. But you have to remember, even if she sold 100,000 copies, that's probably in income. She's probably broke now, because if that book is more than 24 months old, that $100,000 or 100,000 copy curve is dropping. Trust me, I've written 4 books. I know exactly how this works. So that curve is dropping, and sure, she might get a residual check every couple months for $2,000-$3,000, but you can't live on that. You need to sell millions of copies in order to make a living as an author. So that's option 1. Option number 2 is to buy all the textbooks or read them for free on your little pocket computer. All the textbooks you would have read anyway. Yeah, but Josh, that doesn't make up for the labs, the actual creative writing process where your peers review it and give you feedback. Okay, then for $15, join a state or a city writers guild where you get to submit your work to your peers and everybody reviews it. So you do your labs. Check, check. Well, Josh, that doesn't make up for the hours of lecture. Sure it does. You go on this free app called YouTube. And when you're on YouTube, you can watch a 2-hour lecture from Stephen King. This is no endorsement of his, by the way. But you can go on there and watch Stephen King, watch a 2-hour lecture of developing thriller suspense. Then you can watch a 2-hour lecture from James Patterson on how to build dialogue. A 2-hour lecture from the Game of Thrones dude on how to create a mythical world. A 2-hour, see my point? Just look up writer lectures on YouTube. There's going to be thousands and thousands of hours. And let's compare and contrast. Let's take your college professor who even might have sold 100,000 copies of her wonderful sci-fi novel. Or you can get the same lecture time, duration, 20, 30, 80 hours, from men and women who've sold, 950 million copies? And which one's free? So there's just a reality to that, right? There's just a reality to, wait a second, this doesn't really matter. As a matter of fact, more and more state and federal government jobs are no longer requiring a college degree because you can teach yourself a ton of stuff now. So now they just have skill set degrees. And that's including some of these like technical jobs, steam fitting and all that sort of stuff. They learn on YouTube, work with an apprentice or in an apprentice sort of practice and just work your way up and you're in and you save a ton of money. You're actually making a living along the way. So yeah, now back to the crux of our conversation. Buy a business or go to college? Well, first, everything we just covered kind of made that painstakingly clear, I would think. But let's dig a step deeper. The next question I'm commonly asked from people who are thinking about this college thing is, well, Josh, what sort of business college or business school do you recommend if I'm going to be an entrepreneur? And the answer? None. None. I have yet to see a business school program, even if it's based on entrepreneurship, that truly teaches entrepreneurship. And if you think about it, it just is kind of common sense, right? If you're going to teach something to the masses, you're going to have to teach something that came from the past first, right? So when they teach you what Google did 10 years ago to build out their systems, guess what? Google's not doing that anymore. Not only that, they need to teach something that is replicatable and gradable for 500, 700,000 students at a time. Not only that, where does most success come from in business? Doing stuff that other people haven't done. So if they're just teaching you to regurgitate answers and learn systems, is there some applicable benefit to that? Sure. But that's why most of these people with MBAs are terrible business leaders. They're good middle managers, grant you that. But most of them, even a lot of people coming out of Wharton, a lot of them suck. They just suck. And there's a couple more reasons, since I just threw Wharton under the bus. There's a couple more reasons why I would say at least half of their graduates suck, beyond just the characteristics of what they're learning. But Josh, doesn't success in business really stem from success in college? I mean, isn't there a correlation? I mean, good grades, good job. Or good grades, good career, or whatever you want, good grades, fill in the blank, whatever comes next. No. There's this expression that A students work for B students who are managed by C students and D students own the company. And that is statistically true. It is beyond crazy. And there's a ton of stuff. There's a ton of stuff to show that. I mean, money.com had this article, wondering what happened to your class valedictorian? Not much, research shows. No, statistically, they're terrible. Why valedictorians rarely become rich and famous. The average millionaire has a GPA of 2.9. 2.9. Let's just talk about that for a second. Why is that? Well, that's because that valedictorian, those really good students in school, if you think about it, what are they looking for? They're looking for, hey, I want to learn something, be able to test well, give you the answer you're looking for, and in return, I get the prize, whether that's A, whether that's honor roll, whether that's valedictorian, whatever. Regurgitate a right answer, get a prize. Life doesn't work that way. There's no such thing as that in the real world. Doesn't exist. So then you have these kids when they get out of high school, when they get out of college, they're thinking, well, that's how life works. I just provide a good answer to solutions and I get rewarded, right? No. Matter of fact, a lot of people end up broke, bankrupt, divorced. It's sad what happens to the top A class of the student body. And it's funny because some jobs would ask you, or you'd brag about, well, I graduated in the top 10% of my class. If you're applying for any 20, or not 20, I'm no longer at 20, I'm about at 12. If you're applying for a job at any of the 12 companies I'm currently owning and operating, and you brag about how you're in the top 10%, I'm probably going to kick that resume out. Just saying. So you have that. This one's kind of interesting. One for the books. A university education is far from the only path to success. Just ask nearly 30% of the billionaires. Now, we're not talking about millionaires, right? Tons of millionaires out there. 14 million millionaires. 1 in every 10 households. I'm not talking about millionaires. Billionaires are the rarity, right? Well, 30% of living billionaires. We're not talking about J.D. Rockefeller. 30% of living billionaires never got past high school. Let that sink in for a second. Let's take it a step further, though. There's also a smaller pool of billionaires, living and deceased, who never got any secondary education at all. They never even went to high school. Living billionaires never went to high school. Well, wait a second. You might be saying to yourself, well, how is this even possible? I mean, this goes against everything we were taught as to how you gain success. Get a load of this. Did you know that more than 1.3 million students drop out of high school every year in the United States? Considering that this makes a high school dropout ineligible for 90+% of the jobs in the United States, is there any reason to think they will find success? Actually, there is. Though I, speaking on behalf of the author of this news article, don't recommend that anyone drops out of high school, and I'm a big believer in school, there is hope if you're not even able to complete high school. And it goes on to talk about how your financial ability, the ability for you to gain wealth for yourself and for your family, is not tied to good grades. It's not tied to your level of education. And I remember when I was a kid, they used to run this silly ad that said, well, if you get a college education, your odds of, or that means more than $1 million in your life compared to that of a high school graduate. And notice how they don't run those ads anymore? Just saying. Notice how they don't run those ads? Because they found out it's a lie. It's a lie. So, back to the original question. As if we need to add more and more proof, right? Go to college or buy a business? Well, now let's just talk about the financial costs. Let's say you're going to spend $90,000 going to school. And odds are you're probably going to go into debt to do it. And it's going to be one of those degrees where you're never going to really make back anything close to what you're putting into this thing for the first 8 to 10 years. It's kind of like, doctors. Doctors are paying off their medical school debt until they're 55 years old, and the life expectancy of a doctor is even less than a normal average citizen. So was it worth it? Now, let's say you take that same $90,000 and you buy, well, with $90,000, you could buy $1 million business. $1 million business is going to kick you out somewhere between $250,000 and $350,000 a year for you. Any college degree, just look it up. Top 10 earning college degrees. Do any of them start at a starting wage of $250,000 to $350,000? Just so you know, that's like along the lines of President of the United States-ish sort of money. Any of them? Well, Josh, I don't have 90 grand on this side. I don't have 90 grand on that side. Yeah, but which one's easier to get money for? Buying the business. Because you can do things like seller equity. You could do crowdfunding for the down payment. You could do pre-sales to suppliers. You could do vendor sponsorships. There's a million ways to raise that money. And if you're going to make a decision to go one way or the other, and not only that, let's take this a step further. Which one actually provides a better education? You go to college today. Let's just be honest, and I don't care who you voted for. So don't think I'm getting political here. But let's look at the modern day American college campus, where free speech is not welcomed, where the comparison of thought is discouraged, where a real classical education is basically the secondary concern, where the culture, even beyond the academic pollution that has happened, the culture is, have a lot of sex, get invited to a ton of parties, pledge to a frat or a sorority, make some cool TikTok videos, make sure you're popular, try not to get pregnant or get anybody pregnant by the end, and graduate with a degree that most people will never use, and it's never going to make enough money anyway. So that's one side. On the other side, you buy a business, and what happens? Day one, you're making profit. You're learning to integrate your operating system and leadership ability with that of the employees that are there. You're getting to know the local political scene, getting involved with your city council people and your mayor's office and stuff like that. You're learning supply chain, distribution, technology, payroll, finance. Like the skill sets that you pick up from owning a business, come on. You're getting a much better education. And then let's carry that out 4 years, because it takes 4 years to graduate from college typically, right? And let's take that a little bit beyond 4 years, or let's say 4 years, 3 years as a business owner. Where are you at? Well, now if you're making $250,000 a year out of the gate and you're 4 years into that, that's $1 million you've earned in 4 years. $1 million you've earned in 4 years. Plus, you're paying off that note to buy the business, so the equity in that thing's up another, $200,000, $300,000. So now you're sitting on that as equity. I mean, your net worth is rapidly rising. You're in a decent, wonderful neighborhood. You're in a great home. Your bills are paid. You're helping your family out financially. I mean, when you really compare the two, you start saying, why would people go that direction? And of course, at this point, I typically get well, if it's that great, why doesn't everybody do it? And we've talked about that on the show. Everybody is doing it. Everybody is doing it, just not everybody you know. But every business that you can name is doing it. Every billionaire you can name is doing it. Most 100 millionaires that you can name are doing it. You're just not taught to do it, but everybody else is doing it. I mean, when I recorded this episode was the week that Elon Musk bought Twitter. Notice he didn't start another Twitter. He bought Twitter. And of course, that's a massive, huge purchase, but I'm just using an example that everybody will be familiar with. But everybody is doing this. Apple didn't invent Siri, they bought Siri. Apple didn't invent Maps, they bought Maps. They bought the companies that made those things and then just integrated them in. Everybody's doing it. So when you're sitting there going, well, which should we do? And let's even start smaller. Let's start smaller. Let's say, you saved up $10,000 to go to college. And you're like, well, Josh, I only have $10,000. Great. Then find 10 other friends that have $10,000, create an LLC. That LLC now has $100,000 that it can put down on $1 million business. You're still way ahead of that college kid. There's no comparison. And let's say you're in college and you're listening to this and you're like, dang diggity, dude, I should have been doing that, but I'm already into this thing. Now I'm just about to start my junior year or something. What do I do now? Buy a business. Well, wait a second. I'm busy with college. I don't care. Buy a business now. That way you can walk right across the stage. Dun, 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 dun. Oh, actually, that's the president. Whatever the graduation one is, right? Walk across stage, get your diploma, and say, peace out. I'm rich already. See ya. It's amazing. You walk across stage. What do you plan on doing with your career? Bubba, I'm unemployable. I'm already wealthy. I'm making $400,000 a year. I'm good. I mean, it totally changes the world as you know it. And is that really possible? Yes, it's absolutely possible. Not only possible, it's happening. You just weren't taught to do it. So what do we do now? Well, keep listening to these episodes. Keep sharing this with your friends and family. I know the next episode is going to be a little bit more of a how-to. We have 74 episodes now scheduled out. It's very important to go back and listen to 1, 2, 3 as you climb up these episodes, I guess the episode ladder, if you will. But that way it brings context with you. Join our Facebook group. Go to facebook.com, put in Acquisitional Wealth. There's a page and there's a group. There's a difference, of course, but join the page first. The book, Acquisitional Wealth, is going to be out soon, or is already out, depending on when you're listening to this episode. So get that. And of course, we do seminars for people who are interested in learning how acquiring businesses can create wealth. Those seminars are for two types of people. And the first group are people who have never purchased a business before. And they're totally brand new. Like they don't even know where to start. I mean, maybe they found some sort of cheesy website, Biz Buy Sell or something, and they're like, "Oh, well, is this where I start?" The quick answer to that is, "Oh God, no. No. But we do a class that's targeted for them. And the other group that is targeted for that same class are people who already own businesses, but they never thought of growing that business through acquisitions. So many people, I mean, that's going to be an episode in and of itself, but so many people who own a business now are sitting there going, well, how do I grow 10, 20, 30% next year? What do I got to do? Do I have to implement more ClickFunnels? Do I have to increase our social media spend? Do I have to develop? Oh, shut up. No companies grow that way. There's only two ways to grow companies: deals and acquisitions. That's it. So in that same class, we teach businesses that own companies already how to grow rapidly through acquisitions. And in some cases, it actually pays you to buy your competition. I know that sounds crazy, but it's absolutely true. So get involved in that. And then just stay in the acquisitional wealth sort of environment and sphere. We have so many things going on. Sometimes we have special events at no cost at all. Just, hey, we're doing something, show up. Sometimes we release some details. Oh, this is what you want to do. You definitely want to sign up for our newsletter. Because if you're even thinking about buying a business, we release to our newsletter crew, the people who are subscribed to that, we release to them deals that are open for acquisition that are not available to the public, or at least not known to the public. So you get this way big head start on some amazing businesses for sale that the rest of the world don't even know are up for sale yet. So that's kind of what I would suggest. Those sort of things, get all involved, and of course subscribe to this podcast wherever you are watching it or listening to it. And I will see you in episode 5.